Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens with me, Parikshit Luthra. The G20 summit in Johannesburg has wrapped up with two major milestones. It completes a full cycle of every member nation hosting a summit since 2008, and it marks the first ever G20 meeting held on African soil. South Africa opened doors to several non-G20 African nations and regional blocs, making this the most inclusive gathering so far. On the sidelines, Prime Minister Modi met world leaders including Canada's Mark Carney, Japan's Sanae Takaichi, Italy's Giorgia Meloni and South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa. PM Modi called for a global compact to prevent the misuse of AI, pushing for human-centric open-source technologies that are built for the world and not just for individual nations or financial interests. In a new security push, India and Italy announced a joint initiative to combat financing of terror. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the sidelines of the G20 summit, and the two discussed cooperation in various areas including trade, investment, mining, critical minerals, AI, food security. Among the key outcomes, G20 nations agreed to raise climate finance expectations for developing countries to $5.9 trillion. Support for nations struggling with unsustainable debt and ensuring that critical mineral development benefits resource-rich but economically poor producers. That also figured in the discourse. Joining me now to take this forward is Prabhat Kumar, Indian High Commissioner to South Africa. High Commissioner Kumar, thank you very much for joining us on Global Lens. Could you take us through India's key asks at the G20 from developed nations in times of geopolitical volatility?
So, Parikshit, thank you very much for having me on your show. Let me begin by saying that we had a very successful visit of Honorable Prime Minister to South Africa. He was attending the 12th successive G20 summit and therefore brought to the summit a wealth of experience and left a strong imprint on the summit. As you know, the G20 is a premier economic forum for international cooperation. And therefore, the G20 tries to keep geopolitical issues outside. Obviously, the economic issues are also geopolitical political in a way, but they try to keep. So we have a very small paragraph on geopolitical issue. Let me take you through the other issues, economic issues, which were discussed in the summit. First of all, I would like to point out the reform in multi-development bank. That was one issue which was taken up, and we had established a roadmap in the Brazil summit, in the Rio summit. And before that, of course, we had a good paragraph in Delhi summit. And working on that this time, we have the roadmap was looked into and seen that what has happened in the last few years, what reform has taken place. So this was a good outcome. Then we had on debt sustainability, the countries are vulnerable to debt. And we worked on that, and we have now a good paragraph on debt sustainability, how to work on it, and that is there. Then we have a paragraph on financial inclusion and digital public infrastructure, which is India has been emphasizing, and now that is moving from the inclusion to usage of DPI. So that is a good development. And climate, on the climate issues, there are some good paragraphs, especially on the increasing the efficiency, doubling the energy efficiency, annual efficiency rate, and then doubling the attracting the renewable energy in the countries of the world. So those are two good paragraphs, two good issues. And then there is, of course, on the disaster resilience, which we established a group during our presidency, and then this year we have also got CDR, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, in the summit.
There was also a surprise trilateral agreement signed with Canada and Australia. What were the main elements of that agreement?
Yes, this was perhaps there was some work going on, and this agreement was signed between India, Canada, and Australia on cooperation in innovation. It's a good agreement, and you will see that emerging technologies and innovation. This is a good agreement, and you will see that it involves three continents and three democracies. And the idea is to work on emerging technologies, green technologies, also in the resilient supply chain of critical minerals and other and artificial intelligence, which can be used for benefit of the people. So this is a good development. The agreement between India, Australia, and Canada on emerging technologies and innovation.
Prime Minister Modi made 6 key suggestions to the G20. Could you take us through some of them?
Some of the suggestions were very well appreciated, especially on the skill multiplier for Africa, which was a G20 skill multiplier, which the proposal is to have to train the trainers and maybe 1 million trainers, which will enhance productivity, enhance the development of Africa. So this was taken very well. Then there is a proposal on global healthcare response team, which is again, you will recall the COVID, there were problems and responses, and therefore, whenever there is a medical emergency in the world, like a pandemic, or there's a disaster, natural disaster, this team can respond. There is also on the in the global repository on traditional knowledge, which the Prime Minister suggested that this can become, all the traditional knowledge is very good for environment, ecosystem, because it takes care of the ecosystem. And India can also participate in the initiative by putting its own knowledge system in this repository. So these three, and there are three more. There is a drug terror link initiative, countering the drug terror link initiative, which is like whenever there is a drug trafficking, they are linked, and how the drug money is used. So initiative for countering drug terror has been put forth, and there is a satellite data exchange initiative, global satellite open satellite data initiative. So the G20 countries can use the satellite data or share the satellite data, especially with the global south. So these are 5, and there was one more, critical mineral circulation, which is critical circularity of critical minerals.
What does India really want to achieve from the G20 Critical Mineral Circularity Initiative?
Yes, so you see, Prime Minister started his statement in the first session by saying that there is overexploitation, especially in Africa, of minerals. So, that creates its own environmental problems. And therefore, the critical minerals, which has already been exploited, can be recycled and reused. So there are many initiatives in this direction going on in the world, and probably a fund can be established to have this kind of work going on, so that there's not overexploitation and the same minerals can be used. Like, say, your phone, mobile phone has many critical minerals, or many of the emerging technologies have critical minerals. After some time, when you dispose it off, the critical minerals from them can be recovered, and the same can be used. This will be helpful for the ecosystem.
What was the focus of the Prime Minister's meeting with President Ramaphosa of South Africa?
So this was a bilateral meeting between the two countries. Of course, President Ramaphosa was the host, and we have excellent relations, and we have a good economic relation. We have good political relations. So you can recall that we, from the time of Mahatma Gandhi and the indentured labor coming here, we have a good population of 1.7 million of Indians. So we are strategic partners since 1997, and we are working together. And in the meeting, they discussed about this relationship, but also about what can we do in future. So they discussed about on the political level, we can have a political and economic level. We can have a group of member of parliaments and young entrepreneurs or young students visiting each other's country. They discussed about the infrastructure. South Africa is going to make big investment in infrastructure, and probably Indian companies can participate in areas such as power generation, ports, and railways. So this was another good discussion. And there was a discussion on investment in mines, which South Africa wanted, that there could be some investment in mines as well. So that is one area it was discussed. And of course, we discussed the recent cricket matches, the South African team winning India, and the World Cup in which the India defeated South Africa. So, yeah, so these were some of the areas we discussed.
And how does India plan to deepen trade and business ties with South Africa?
Yes, so this was also discussed. This was we have right now a good trade of around $18 billion bilateral, more or less balanced. But what the Prime Minister said is that this can be easily increased by 50%. And for that, he proposed that right now we are negotiating the SAPU, Preferential Trade Agreement. SAPU is South African Custom Area. So these are 5 countries, and we are discussing that. So Prime Minister tried to establish a timeline that this should be done by the BRICS summit. So it was taken very well by the South African side, which we also wanted to go fast on this. So this is one area which we are looking into. Of course, I discussed about the investments in areas, and there are investments from the South African companies also in India. So actually, Prime Minister had a meeting with NASPERS, which is a South African company, which has invested around $10 billion in India and are planning more investment. So Prime Minister met CEO of NASPERS and some other companies as well. So it's both ways, talking about investments and trade. And the countries are working together in these areas.
All right. Thank you very much, High Commissioner Prabhat Kumar, for joining us with a summary of Prime Minister's interventions at the G20 summit in Johannesburg. On Final Cut this evening, ahead of Thanksgiving,